Good morning, my students. Today, once again, I have come before you with a lecture. And in previous lecture, I, we have discussed on Gandhi. What could have been the nature of Indian freedom without Gandhi? Today, once again, we are going to discuss a very important issue, and that is about the communalism in India. We have discussed a lot about nationalism, but today we have to discuss on communalism. Topic is why did communalism progress side by side along with nationalism in course of national movement? Or in other words, you can say why did communalism emerge to be a step brother of nationalism, and in a specific Indian condition, nationalism and communalism both progressed together, finally leading to the partition of India. Nationalism is, that is an integrative force. Communalism is a dividing force. Both are the product of the modern age, and both manifested themselves in course of the national movement. It is a matter of surprise that Western Europe is supposed to be the father of modern nationalism, but there you don't find the emergence of communalism side by side. But why did same just appeared in India? Before proceeding with the topic, first of all, we have to define the two different terms or related terms, you can say, nationalism and communalism. If you will just observe the traditional, or you can say the classical definition of this nationalism, so in fact, nation state reflects a community of the people which is having some sort of integration and some sort of integration with each other, or some sort of identity with each other. It is the product of a specific customs and tradition, and it is the product of the specific historical consciousness. So this is the classical definition of nationalism. Likewise, if you have to define what is communalism, so here I am giving the example. If the specific religious community, in fact, you find the term, community. So a specific religious community started to think we are having the identical political, economic, and social interest. So that is known as communalism. I am giving you some concrete example, the things would be more clear. If someone is inquiring from some other person, who are you? He will reply, I am a Brahmin, or I am a Kshatriya. That means he is definitely a casteist. Because a person is having too many identities. You are not having the single one identity, but still making the single one identity as the basis of your recognition. So that is casteism. So likewise, if someone is inquiring from some other person, who are you? And he will reply, I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, I am a Christian. So that is communalism. In fact, religion is not a bad thing. It is a good thing. It is for our spiritual upliftment, a spiritual realization. But whenever that became the part of the identity politics, so then it takes the form of communalism. My student, now you have to observe in course of national movement, communalism progressed side by side. What were the issues there? Firstly, when British came to India, so British was not having the proper understanding of Indian society. And just like the product of our Western bias, Western prejudices, British also started to treat India as a nation of different caste and religion. The British tried to identify India as the land of different religions and different castes. So under this impression, they unconsciously play the role of the communal division in India. Here you can find the two examples. One example is the census. You know, British for the first time introduced census in India. Census is a good thing. You can say, enumerating the number of the people. But the British adopted the specific method of the communal census and the caste census. On the basis of the census, the different castes and communities were specified. So unconsciously, it gave a communal consciousness. It created some sort of rivalry between the Hindu and Muslim communities who became more conscious about their demographic strength. Second one factor is it was the first, very few people know, it was not an Indian historian, but rather the British historian James Mill, who composed the first history of India in the beginning of 19th century. And he classified Indian history in two periods, Hindu period and Muslim period. In one sense, the classification of Indian history between Hindu period and Muslim period, so it was the communalization of history. Here you find the communalization of history started. So that was the first factor. As the second factor, we have to mention about the earlier Muslim reaction against the modernization introduced by British in India. When the British came to India, it affected the different social groups. So even Muslims were affected. Now, even the Muslims were not a monolithic group. It consisted of the two different layers of society, the elitist Muslims and the commoners Muslims. Among the elitist Muslims, you can say most of them were coming from Jagirdari elements. They were the Jagirdars, nobles, aristocrats. Some of them were even English educated. So they felt a pinch of the British rule on two grounds. The first one, they felt a sense of loss on political front. They were having a sense of the loss of the power in India. They lost the political power before the British. And second one, they came to realize that they economically and socially lagged behind the majority of Hindus in India. So among such early intellectuals, Muslim intellectuals, you may come to know a name, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan became attracted towards the Muslim upliftment walk. But it was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan who unconsciously laid the foundation of the communal politics in India. What is the reason? In fact, here the Muslim elite felt that we have lost, and in our loss even a specific British policy became instrumental, but they fell under the wrong impression. If we will gain the British support and British grace, so we can overcome the demographic strength of the Hindus. Here I am giving the example. In fact, they came to realize that the Muslims are perpetual minority in India. They cannot fight with the Hindus on election fronts. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was very scared about the progress of democratic politics and democratic institutions in India. They tried to establish that there should be the two votes only, because the Hindustan is the collection of two coms, Hindus and Muslims. So Hindus should have one vote and Muslims should one vote. So in place of the numerical strength, in fact, the communal basis should be the basis of representation in politics. So it was the view given by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and he tried to convince the British and look toward the British. He even suggested the Muslim youth to beware of the national politics and national movement in order to win over the sympathy and support of the British. So it is from here you can say confusion started. So this is the reaction of the elitist Muslims. But we have to talk about the other Muslims as well, you know, as the lower class Muslims. So lower class Muslims normally, you know, they were the peasants, the village workers, etc., etc. So they were suppressed by the British rule. the, you can say, high land revenue exaction, the excessive economic pressure, just made their plight very pathetic. So even these elements reacted against the British rule. Here you will come to realize the mode of their reaction was much different from the elitist Muslims. What was their mode of reaction? In fact, they tried to recall the old glorious days of Muslims. And the old glorious days was the days of caliphs, when Muslims had created a global empire. So they just went into their own dreamland, and you can say colorful past. So whenever they were talking about the caliph rule or to convert India from Darul Harb to Darul Islam, so such proved counterproductive. Although target was British, but even in course of time, it created a divisive politics in India, because even the Hindus and other communities fell into the ambit. So it was the natural outcome of this sort of politics. So my student, this was the second one factor. Now we have to move to the third factor. You have heard a lot about socio-religious reforms movement in India in 19th century. That is popularly known as Indian Renaissance. In fact, through the English education, a group of Indians came in touch with the Western progressive ideas like liberalism, individualism, nationalism, capitalism, etc. So they earlier welcomed the ideas, because they took these ideas as regenerative ideas for India or Indian society. But it was the time that some of the British and Western scholars were having a sense of arrogance, racial arrogance, and it is in sense of racial arrogance they even try to, like you can say, the thinkers or authors like James Mill. He was a utilitarian thinker. He tried to degrade Indian society. Indians are perpetually inferior. In fact, Indian civilization is decadent and declining. So naturally, a group of intellectuals reacted against the British situation. Here you find what you know as the Indian Renaissance. So that consisted of the influence from Western elements as well as the reaction both. Now in course of the reaction, they moved towards their own tradition and culture. And as a reply to the British and, you can say, intellectual arrogance of the Western thinkers, they tried to explore some merits of Indian culture itself. And they tried to find out some specific, you can say, ideological achievement of ancient Indians. So it is in this course, unconsciously, they became revivalist. And revivalist politics proved counterproductive once again, because some Hindu thinkers started to sing about the ancient glory of the Indian culture. So now the Muslims felt a sense of isolation, because if ancient India depending the glory of Hindus, then where the Muslims should search their glory? So this was the pertinent and perpetual question before them. So obviously they started to look towards the West Asia and Central Asia for their glorious history. That is the one point. Once again, there are some other points and other issues as well. One important issue was that so far the British encouraged the divisive politics in India unconsciously, as I have told you earlier, that they were almost unaware of the specific nature of Indian society. But up to the beginning of 20th century, when national movement of India intensified and there was the rise of extremism in Indian politics. So here you will come to know that this phenomena, in fact, just terrified the British. And British came to realize that it is better to divide the national movement of India through following the policy of divide and rule. And it was in this course, they encouraged a policy of communal division. You might have heard about this policy, divide and rule. And it is on this basis they introduced the separate electorate of 1909 and also encouraged the politics of the Muslim League. So it was the course. Now One other factor was that so far you have observed communalism in its moderate phase. What is there are the two terms, moderate phase and extremist phase. You may be a bit curious, what is the specific nature of the moderate phase of communalism? In moderate phase, communalism believes that the political, economic and social interest of the specific community is one and the same and different from that of other communities. Although it is also, even it is creating some sort of division, but definitely the division is having some moderate tinge, not extremist tinge, you can say. But it is from 1937 onwards, there was the rise of the leaders like Jinnah, and even some Hindu communalists did not lag behind him. They tried to establish that the secular interests or the political, economic and social interest of the Muslim communities are antithetical to the other communities. So when such a concept emerged, so that proved excessive divisive. In the meantime, the elections of 1937 proved a landmark because it encouraged the communal politics further. The losses in elections made Muslim League upset and even some Hindu communalist parties, and they changed their strategy. They redefined their objective and they started their politics with new vigor. So that's why you can see in 1937, after 1937, the communal politics reached up to its extremist phase. Here, two names you can find here. One is in League, the leader of League, Jinnah. There was the rise of Jinnah. The matter of surprise is that Jinnah Sahib himself is supposed to be a secular. You might have heard a lot about Advani ji. Once in his Pakistan speech, he declared that Jinnah was secular. So some Indian leaders could not tolerate this, and that proved devastating to the career of Advani ji. You might have heard about. If you will just seek my opinion, I will just tell that Jinnah was definitely secular in his personal life. He was taking a Scotch whiskey, smoking cigar. Hardly will you find any example he was just going to mosque or observing roja, namaz, etc. But simply this is not the level of secularism. In fact, in public life, Jinnah was communal because it became the brand of politics of Jinnah. It was Jinnah who declared that Hindus and Muslims are the two nations and they needed to land, different region and different identity. So in political life, Jinnah was definitely communal. The matter of surprise is that there is the very reputed Hindu leader you might have heard a lot, B.D. Savarkar, now awaiting for the Bharat Ratna as well. And Savarkar was such a dedicated nationalist. If you have to measure the weightage of Savarkar, you are invited to go to Port Blair, and particularly you are supposed to visit cellular jail. You will be surprised to know that what was the political status of Savarkar there. Now, every, you can say, corner of this cellular jail is speaking about the glory of Savarkar. Even you will just, your flight will land at the airport at Port Blair. The name of the port is the Veer Savarkar port. But it is in 1930s Savarkar turned to Hindutva politics. And then even he started to make an attack on, you can say, League and Muslims. So it was in this context that unconsciously Savarkar has given a new definition of nationalism. You people have heard about a term, cultural nationalism. Cultural nationalism is a term, even today, that is quite popular, and it is a matter of, you can say, intellectual discourses as well. What is cultural nationalism? Savarkar emphasized, in fact, a state is a political identity, but nation is a cultural identity. That is good. This is right. But simultaneously he told that in India, The basis of cultural identity is Hinduism. So if you have to develop the cultural identity in India, you have to cling to Hinduism. Not simply that, he also made this point clear, that for being an Indian, you are supposed to have your birthplace and even your pilgrimage centers in India. It means that Muslims and Christians are not going to be counted because they were having their pilgrimage centers outside of India. So unconsciously, I am sorry to say that this sort of cultural nationalism and the definition of nationalism made the work of Jinnah and League easy, because they were seeking this sort of politics. Hatred thrived on hatred, as Bipin Chandra has says. And finally, you can say that national movement has taken the direction for that we were not prepared. Last but not the least, you can say, sorry. This national movement, the national politics and communal politics, both intensified side by side each other. Both were complementary to each other. Here you can find the example. Earlier, even nationalism was at elitist phase. It was confined to a group of people, the group of elites. At that time, even communalism was confined to this elitist phase. But when nationalism moved to the common people, there was the mass politics started on the front of nationalism, so started the same mass politics on the front of communalism. In 1929, the Congress adopted or introduced a proposal that is called Lahore Proposal and Purna Swaraj, complete freedom, you might have heard about. On the same fateful year, Jinnah brought the so-called Delhi Declaration, and that was the declaration of communal politics based on 14-point program. Likewise, in 1937, for the first time, there was the formation of the national government in so many provinces. In provinces, you can say, all the 11 provinces. On the same, you can say, and it was at that time, you know, Jinnah in 1940 brought the so-called proposal of separate state in Lahore session. In 1942, the Congress launched the Quit India movement. It was the time League declared, "Lad kar lenge Pakistan." You will take Pakistan through fighting. In 1946, there was the formation of interim government in India. It was in 1946, Jinnah and League declared Direct Action Day, and that led to the Hindu-Muslim rights. So my students, it is really a matter of surprise, or rather you can say a very shared matter, the matter of an utter failure of the national movement. We became partially successful, we got freedom, but partially failure because we faced partition. And matter of surprise is that some of the secular leaders and secular parties which are making the claim in India, what were they doing? What did they not do enough to avert the situation of partition? It is also a matter of surprise, but we have to discuss this topic, this issue in the next one topic, and that is, was partition inevitable or could it be averted? So my students, in the next lecture, I will make this point clear. Thank you very much.